Because martial arts is confrontational and you're a martial arts teacher, do you also get challenged?
Yes. Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, I couldn't care less about fighting, as you know, not slightly. But yeah, I get plenty of that. When I was younger, I liked it. And, you know, I was young and stupid and liked all that rubbish, and you have an ego and you want to get out there and get dirty, and it's all right for young men, but it shouldn't be the habit of people if they're like 40 years old or something. It's for teenagers, really. It's like grow up, basically. However, yes, it happens. Now, if somebody makes a formal challenge and came in and actually voiced a challenge, I would just say, oh, you win. Just everyone is a witness, he is superior. I couldn't care less. What do you lose? It's a joke. What are they trying to do? You win, you're better. But people don't do that. I mean, I get challenged at least a few times every tour, but it's never like that. People jump you, they don't warn you, they just do it. So you don't even get a chance to give them the victory. It's just poor behavior from an adolescent mind. It happens, it doesn't matter. The result's always the same.
People ask, and this is mostly in the MMA sphere, why Tai Chi isn't a form that they see in many of those competitions. Why do you think that is?
It takes decades to get good at. By then you're too old to do that. It takes a sophisticated mind to get good at it. After decades of doing that, your mind's not going to be very sophisticated after getting hit in the head hundreds of times. The kind of mind and person that has more potential to get good at Tai Chi Chuan is going to be more introspective, more quiet, more meditative, and you know, MMA is kind of the opposite, because they're opposites in every way. Because in MMA you want what works now, right? Their whole theory is based on what works. We use what works. But what that actually means is we use what works within a week of trying it. If I tried it in the ring for a week and it didn't work, throw it out as a technique that doesn't work. Nothing in Tai Chi Chuan works after a week. It takes years. It's simply not suitable to their philosophy. Not in any way. Zero. Not practical.
People talk about using Tai Chi practices or qualities of it to supplement in their other fighting form. What do you think about that?
I think that's more like using a bit of internal to supplement your fighting form, not using Tai Chi. So if you use some Jin to generate punching power, right? Yeah, great, I'm all for it. But that's not using Tai Chi, that's using Jin. Now you might use Tai Chi training to develop your Jin, but Tai Chi is not that. It's not the same thing. Just using internal power doesn't mean you're using Tai Chi. Or just using a bit of yielding or going with the flow or relaxation, that's not Tai Chi either, right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
When is Jin Jin and when is it just crude force?
Well, it depends on what your teacher says. I mean, Jin in one style is not the same as Jin in another. Jin just means refined force. So even external styles have Jin, but they have external Jin. And internal styles have internal Jin, Nei Jin. My definition is, when the power is generated by the mobilization of Qi, that's Jin. When it's generated by just mobilization of the body, that's external force. If it's generated by the mobilization of the body and supported by the Qi, that's still external force. Nei Jin is when the power is actually coming from the Qi mobilization to create Jin. Yeah. But it's specific for Tai Chi Chuan, or maybe even specific for my view of it. It really matters what your teacher thinks, what he means when he says that word. It's not about arguing on the internet about what it is. What does your teacher mean when he says Jin? So you can follow instruction, right? That's the key point.
So what is the end goal of Tai Chi?
Definitely become immortal, enlightenment, union with God, union with the Tao, Nibbana.
Now, immortality doesn't mean living forever within this
No,
physical form. So immortality, how?
Because enlightenment.
A lot of people would see immortality, well, if you get reborn anyways, so that's immortality to a certain extent.
Yeah, but it's not you anymore, is it? Otherwise, why don't you tell me about all your past life cycles? You can't, because it's not you. Rebirth, it's a new birth, it's a new thing that happened. It's not you continuing. So immortality is transcending that cycle, being free from that cycle. No longer bound by birth and death, that's immortality.
And then what's next?
After immortality? I think that will do. But that's definitely the goal. I mean, the founder is like the most highly achieved practitioner probably in all of the history of China. The founder was an immortal. And this is his masterpiece, right? His masterpiece was not for punching and kicking. You spend your whole life developing alchemy and the path to immortality and enlightenment. You're all-round absolute master. And then your masterpiece is, I don't think so, right? The goal is immortality. Now, even in the text it says, this art is not just for self-defense, but for longevity. Longevity is another word that means immortality, which means enlightenment.
Many women practice Tai Chi, and physically, men and women are different. Does that also mean the path in training is also different?
I'd rather talk more generally about the path than about Tai Chi for this. Because when we say Tai Chi, it's who, what school, what training. It's just, it means a different thing to different people, even though it shouldn't. So the path in general, it's the same for men and women. But men and women are different, and not just physically. So the classic saying is, and this exists in many traditions, the path is difficult for men in the beginning and easier at the end. The path is easier for women in the beginning and more difficult at the end. So this is, I'll probably get attacked, of course, and probably I must be a Nazi now. How dare you differentiate something? Discernment is banned. Okay. So at the risk of using discernment, the lower dantian, the lower region, is associated with sex desire. Okay? Now, we all know that men struggle with sex desires more than women in general. Okay? Then as you move up, more central area, it's associated more with emotion. So you move your way up. So in the beginning, it's hard for men. You have to like stop ejaculating, okay? That's hard for men. That's easy for women. It's hard for men, it's easy for women. So the very first cause is to consolidate the Jing, to stop ejaculating, to calm down sexually so that you can accumulate some qi, right? That's very difficult for men. Men struggle. Most fail at the very first stage. Women breeze on by. But then we move up higher. Okay, now we're into the emotional stuff, right? That's much easier for men, and then the women struggle. So the path is the same, but the way they progress is not. And that means that there's slight different timing and some different aspects of exercises along the way. It's one path, but there's difference in the way people walk it. Okay? Does that answer it? Yeah.
Yes. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap it up for today. Thank you so much for doing this interview.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Congrats.